Coming up August 18th through the 20th, one of the biggest nutrition conferences of the entire year, the International Conference on Nutrition and Medicine in Washington, D.C. You're talking about more than 30 speakers, world renowned for their expertise when it comes to diet, lifestyle, and how that applies to your health. And really cool, there are scholarship opportunities available for both nurses and dietitians. And here with me today on the exam room is somebody who is giving away those scholarships, Mary Sherrill, who was a nurse herself. Mary, thanks so very much for being here.
Indeed, yeah. Thanks for having me, Chuck.
You were a nurse yourself, so this clearly is near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your experience really quickly before we talk about the scholarship in being a nurse and what you noticed between maybe how the patients were taking care of themselves, and were they looking at their diet and lifestyle at all?
Well, not at all. This goes back to the 70s. I was in school and graduated early 80s. And no, nursing did not have much of nutrition, but from the sounds of what the doctors had in their 4 or 5 years, or 6 or 8 years of schooling, they didn't have any. So I just thought we needed to get the information out that PCRM is going to have at the ICNM, and get the well, not just the girls, but the people that are in the trenches with the patients, and have more time at the bedside maybe than the doctors do. And we need to get them educated. And the scholarship is not about having a barrier to that.
No, absolutely. I mean, we want to get this information out to as many people as possible, which is, I mean, that's actually the exact reason why we do the exam room as well. But it seems to me like, lifestyle medicine, which definitely includes nutrition here, is still kind of an emerging thing. And so back when you were a nurse yourself and working in those trenches you were just referencing, I mean, it sounds to me like we have a little bit of it now, but there was no lifestyle medicine whatsoever back in the day.
No. And it's a shame. I started out my career on a general surgery floor. And I realized that my favorite part of that was doing the education to the patients, like before they'd go into surgery or before they'd have a procedure done. And because you'd have better outcomes when they were a little more educated about what to expect, even if that was pain, and what they could do to avoid some of that pain post-op. So education was a big thing back then. And then I morphed into neonatal intensive care. I went into the Air Force. Started there, and then worked out into the operating room. But still, people need to not throw all of their eggs into one basket, thinking the surgery is going to take care of it, or the medication is going to take care of it, or something else is going to take care of it. They need to be aware that they can take care of it. So let's educate some people.
So before we give the information on how nurses and dietitians can apply for the scholarship, let me ask you, I mean, with this type of information that people will learn over the 3 days, how do you expect that could affect patient outcomes? What is your hope there?
Well, I think I am going to learn a lot when I go to ICNM as well. I've been to conferences in the past that have been similar to this, but not quite with 30 speakers and such the breadth of all of the community that is in the functional lifestyle medicine realm. And so I look to, I sort of kind of forget the question a bit.
The question was what is your hope for how this will help nurses and dietitians improve the outcomes of patients?
Thank you. Because then they'll have the energy behind the education and feel confident about being able to step into that space, which has usually been the doctor's space, or maybe the pharmacist's space of you can't do anything but this procedure, or you can't do anything but this medication. And it can be more along the lines of the patient knows at the end of their fork they have some power in or whatever they're nibbling on that day, to choose an apple or some raisins or whatever, instead of what they are told are the convenience foods.
Well, let's take a look at the lineup of speakers that we have this year at ICNM. Dr. Alan Desmond will be there, just renowned gastroenterologist from the UK. He's been on the show a number of times. We've got Dr. Brian Carlson from the Mayo Clinic. He's going to be there. Cyrus Kambata and Robbie Barbero from Mastering Diabetes, my guys. Dr. Kim Williams, renowned cardiologist up at Rush University. I mean, can't say enough great things about this gentleman's work. Dr. Monica Agarwal, had her on the show. Another person who is just a mover and a shaker, Dr. Sarai Stancic, Dr. Neil Barnard, of course, Dr. Hana Kaliova, who is one of the smartest people I have ever met in my entire life. The entirety of her research that she has done and what we have spoken about on the show truly is, especially for diabetes, just a game changer. And I can't wait to hear her presentation. Of course, we have so many others. Dr. Dean Ornish. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And you can get the full list at pcrm.org/ICNM. That's the place to go to register. But Mary, when it comes to this scholarship that we're giving away for nurses and dietitians, who is the ideal candidate for this scholarship?
Oh, well, I think that the person who, I don't know, like me back in the 70s, wants to sit down and make a change for the patient's outcome, the person who's going to be sitting down at the end of the bed anyway and saying, you know, this is a possibility for you to look at diet along with whatever your doctor is mentioning, but taking back a little control. So sometimes it's the brand new nurse right out of school who, is just a brand new blossom, and she or he, sorry about that, she or he just wants to spend some time with their patient and give some education and the power of nutrition. And so that would be a person that I would want to catch at the new part. Whether it's a nurse or a dietitian that's coming out and just got their 4 years of dietitian training, but we might know that it might not have been a lot of here's how good foods work for you. It might have been more about chemistry and stuff like that. So I think the newbies coming out of diet school or nursing school, but also the people who might have been frustrated with seeing that nothing's a lot changing with the same old way things have been doing. So they might want to switch it up. They may have dipped their toe into the whole food, plant-based nutrition, functional medicine, lifestyle realm. Heard a couple doctors and want to know more, but want to make sure that they have a lineup of those people that you just mentioned, those 30 superstars in the fields, giving the good information as opposed to like looking it up on the internet and catching some whatever.
Oh, you mean those random blogs aren't the best places for information, Mary?
Lovely, but it's not lovely 100%. So you gotta find your people.
All right. So lots of good people to learn from August 18th through the 20th. ICNM, that's going to be in Washington, D.C. at the Grand Hyatt, Washington. Here's the score. The scholarship available for nurses and dietitians will knock $300 off the cost of admission. All right. This is a fantastic savings, $300 off. So they are limited in number. Goodness gracious. There's only but so many of these. So I would definitely get your application in today. You can do that right now. pcrm.org/ICNM. When you're there at the menu at the top, you'll see a link for scholarships. Go ahead and click on that. That'll take you right over to the application page. And priority will be given to the RNs and RDs who are working with communities of color and underserved populations. So certainly, if you are able to reach those communities, we would love to hear from you. So pcrm.org/ICNM to apply for the Mary and Clint Sherrill Scholarship. $299, almost $300 off the cost of admission, August 18th through the 20th for the International Conference on Nutrition and Medicine. Mary, thank you so much for kind of just parlaying your own experience in the medical field into a brighter future for somebody else's. I think that this is just a wonderful idea, and you're so generous. Thank you so much.
Me, my husband and I, he just was doing the farming, gardening thing right now today. And so I have a chance to talk to you, but yeah, it's a team effort.
Outstanding. Well, I look forward to seeing you there. And certainly, again, if you're interested in applying, you're a nurse, you're a dietitian, we would love to see you at ICNM this year. So pcrm.org/ICNM, or just click the link that is in the show description right now. Mary, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks, Chuck, for having me. It's great.
If your health IQ is a couple of points higher than it was a few minutes ago, go ahead and like this video or subscribe to the YouTube channel. And to take it even higher, head over to Apple Podcast or wherever you get your favorite shows. Look for The Exam Room by the Physicians Committee. Hit the subscribe button there as well and help to make your world a healthier place.